Could you survive a week in ancient Egypt? Probably not, and now I'll tell you why. You suddenly find yourself on the banks of the Nile 4,000 years ago. You are not surrounded by movie sets, but by the real, living ancient Egypt. Here, there are no technologies, laws, or even concepts of the world that you are familiar with. In this world, the scorching sun and the flooding of the great river determine your entire life from birth to death. Your modern knowledge is useless here, and your social status is zero. You are a stranger in the most advanced civilization of your time, and every day is a challenge for you. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn the true price of survival in a world where one wrong step could cost you everything. What if I told you that everything you believed about ancient Egypt is not true? Forget the romantic image of pharaohs and priests that you know from books. For you, Egypt begins at the very bottom of the social ladder, where you have no name and no rights. The first thing you will encounter is a complete lack of personal identity as you understand it. You have no family, no clan, no profession, which means that to the Egyptians, you are nobody. Your survival now depends on whether someone will take you under their wing. The whole of Egyptian society is built on the concept of ma'at, universal order, harmony, and justice. Every person, from the pharaoh to the simple peasant, had their own clearly defined role in this order. You do not fit into this system, and your existence is a violation of harmony. You will be judged not by your knowledge or skills, but by your physical strength and ability to perform simple work. The ability to read, write, or count is useless here without the official status of a scribe. Your only currency is muscle power and endurance. Most likely, your fate is to become an assistant on someone's farm or construction site. You will have to do the dirtiest and most monotonous work, and no one will explain the rules to you. You will have to learn them as you go. Communication will be an insurmountable barrier because you don't know a single word of ancient Egyptian. Your gestures and attempts to explain something will be viewed with suspicion. You will be alone among thousands of people living by laws that are completely incomprehensible to you. You will have to forget about concepts such as personal space or private property in the usual sense. You will live and work in a community where everything is shared. Your life now depends entirely on the mercy of your patron or overseer. Even the simplest actions, such as eating or relieving yourself, are subject to strict rituals and rules. By breaking them, you risk incurring the wrath not only of people, but also of the gods. And the wrath of the gods is what people fear most here. Gradually, you will begin to understand that survival here is not a struggle against nature, but the ability to fit into a complex social machine. You need to become an invisible cog in a huge mechanism so that it doesn't grind you down. And you only have 1 week to do it. Do you think you could adapt to a society where your origins mean everything? Share your opinion in the comments. Are you ready to learn the truth about what was the most valuable resource in Egypt? It's not gold or precious stones, but ordinary fresh water. The entire life of civilization was built around the Nile, and your first quest is to find constant access to its life-giving moisture. Most likely, you will live in a small village on the banks of a canal branching off from the main river. Your first daily duty will be to deliver water. You will be given 2 heavy clay jugs suspended from a yoke. Every day at dawn, you will have to go to the canal, fill the jugs, and carry them back. This work requires not only strength, but also skill so as not to spill the precious cargo. Water is needed for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. Now about your dwelling, if you can call it that. You will be housed in a simple mud brick house with a flat roof. Inside, there will be only one room where your host's entire family lives. The walls of such a house are made of bricks mixed with Nile silt and straw. During the day, they remain relatively cool, but at night they cool down quickly. There are no windows as we know them, only small openings under the ceiling for ventilation. The floor in the house is earthen, periodically moistened with water and tamped down. There is practically no furniture, a few mats for sleeping, a low table, and clay dishes. Everyday life is extremely ascetic and serves only one purpose: survival. Your sleeping place is a hard mat in the corner. There is no privacy whatsoever. You will sleep, eat, and spend all your free time side by side with strangers. The roof of the house is flat and serves an important function. At night, when the heat subsides, the whole family can sleep on the roof to escape the stuffiness. Grain, dates, and other products are also dried there. You must always remember that your dwelling is not your property. You are a guest here, occupying the lowest place. Any sign of discontent or disobedience could result in you being thrown out onto the street. But even if you have water and a roof over your head, how can you prove your right to them in a world without passports or lawyers? Are you ready to learn how the Egyptian justice system worked and what awaits you in the event of a conflict? What I am about to show you will determine your fate in ancient Egypt. Imagine that you have been accused of something: stealing a loaf of bread or being lazy. In your world, you would demand a lawyer, but here everything is decided in a completely different way, and your ignorance of the law is your main problem. Justice in ancient Egypt was based not on written codes, but on customs and the decisions of respected people. In your village, all disputes are resolved by a local council called a kenbet. It consists of the most influential residents, the village head, the priest, and several wealthy farmers. If you are accused of something, you will be brought before this council for trial. There will be no formal proceedings. The accuser will simply state their claim, and you will be given the opportunity to respond. Your main problem is that you cannot speak. You will have to explain yourself with gestures, trying to prove your innocence. But most importantly, you have no witnesses who could vouch for you. The council's decision will be based on the reputation and social status of the parties. Your accuser is a local resident, a member of the community, and you are a stranger with no name and no past. Guess whose side the council is likely to take? If you are found guilty, the punishment will be swift and instructive for others. Most often, it was work in favor of the victim. You could be required to work for them for several days or weeks to make up for the damage. The key figure in all disputes was the scribe. He was the one who recorded the testimony, complaints, and decisions of the council. His word carried enormous weight, as he was a representative of state authority and literacy. If the scribe wrote that you were guilty, it would be almost impossible to dispute it. Bureaucracy and the written word had an almost sacred meaning in Egypt. A document was more important than verbal assurances. You need to understand that justice here is not about seeking the truth, but about restoring the disturbed order of Ma'at. Your punishment will not so much be a punishment as a way to put everything back in its place. Therefore, the best way to survive is to avoid conflict and be as inconspicuous as possible. Your task is to prove your usefulness and loyalty. Only then will you be able to earn trust and receive at least some protection from the community. Otherwise, any minor dispute could end very badly for you. Guess which product was simultaneously food, currency, and the main part of the diet in ancient Egypt? The answer is simple: bread. Your menu for the coming week will consist mainly of it, and the process of making it will become your new reality. The first stage is grinding the grain. You will be given 2 stones, a large flat one and a smaller oval one. Your task is to kneel and grind wheat or barley into flour for hours. This is hard and monotonous work that quickly tires your back and arms. The resulting flour will be coarsely ground with impurities of sand and small stones. This flour will form the basis of your diet. Women knead dough from this flour, adding only water and salt. Then they form small, round cakes from the dough. They bake them either on hot stones or in a simple clay oven. The bread turns out to be very dense, hard, and coarse. If you are not used to it, it will be difficult to chew and digest. But it is the most caloric and affordable product that will give you strength to work. The second most important product in your diet will be beer. But forget about the modern foamy drink. Egyptian beer is a thick, cloudy, and very nutritious liquid, more like liquid porridge. It was also made from barley. First, special beer breads were made, which were then crumbled, poured with water, and left to ferment. This drink was not so much for intoxication as for satisfying hunger and thirst. Your daily diet would consist of a few flatbreads, a bowl of thick beer, and, if you were lucky, a handful of vegetables. The vegetables could be onions, garlic, cucumbers, or beans. That's all the food you could count on. There will be no variety in your diet. Day after day, you will eat the same thing. Your body, accustomed to different food, may react unpredictably to such a diet. To get this meager food, you will have to work hard and long. No one here will feed you for free. Every piece of bread and every sip of beer must be earned through hard work. But to get food, you have to work. In the next chapter, you will learn what a typical working day of a simple Egyptian consisted of and what tasks you will have to perform from dawn to dusk. Your working day in ancient Egypt will begin long before dawn. With the first rays of the sun, you must already be on your feet, ready for hard work. Life here is completely subject to the solar cycle, and wasting precious daylight hours is unacceptable. After a meager breakfast of flatbread and water, you will be sent to work. Depending on the season, this could be in the fields, on a construction site, or on irrigation canals. As an unskilled laborer, you will be given the most primitive work. If it is the sowing or harvesting season, you will go to the fields. You will have to work under the scorching sun, using the simplest tools. This could be a hoe for loosening the soil or a wooden sickle for harvesting. Working in the fields requires endurance rather than strength. You will have to spend hours in a bent position, performing repetitive movements. There are no breaks except for a short lunch break. If you end up on a construction site, your task will be to make raw bricks. You will carry water from the canal, knead clay with straw with your feet, fill wooden molds with this mixture, and lay the bricks out to dry in the sun. This is dirty and exhausting work. Another option may be working on irrigation facilities. You will need to clean the canals of silt, reinforce dams, or carry water for irrigating fields using a shadoof. A shadoof is a simple device, similar to a well crane, that requires constant physical effort. A supervisor will constantly monitor your work. Any laziness or delay will be immediately noticed. At best, you will be yelled at. At worst, physical force may be used. The working day ends only at sunset. Tired, covered in dust and sweat, you will return to your village. You will only have time for dinner and a short sleep before the next equally hard day. You will quickly realize that time flows differently here. It is measured not in hours and minutes, but in cycles of work and rest. Your life will turn into an endless series of identical days filled with physical labor. And so it will continue, day after day, week after week. You are part of a huge working machine that is building a great civilization. And this machine has no days off or holidays for people like you. What if I told you that fashion in ancient Egypt was not a matter of style, but a matter of survival? In conditions of constant heat and scorching sun, clothing and hygiene played a key role in maintaining health and working capacity. You will have to quickly learn the local rules to avoid problems. Your only clothing will most likely be a simple loincloth made of coarse linen. This material was the most common in Egypt because it is light, durable, and breathable. You won't be offered anything else, and in this climate, you don't need anything more. Such minimalist clothing does not restrict movement during work. It allows the body to breathe and cope with the heat in some way. Women wore simple straight sundresses with straps, also made of linen. You will most likely not have any shoes. Most ordinary Egyptians went barefoot. Sandals made of papyrus or leather were a sign of a certain status, and you would not be entitled to them. Now about hygiene, which was elevated to a cult. The Egyptians were very clean as far as conditions allowed. Daily ablutions in the waters of the canal or the Nile were a mandatory procedure. You would have to bathe at least twice a day, in the morning and in the evening after work. This not only washed away dirt and sweat, but also provided a momentary relief from the heat. The water in the canals was certainly not clean, but you had no other alternative. Hair on the head caused many problems in the heat. Therefore, most men shaved their heads and faces. For this, they used bronze or copper razors, which required skill to use. Special attention was paid to the eyes. The bright sun and dust caused irritation. Therefore, both men and women used a special eyeliner made of antimony, coal, or green malachite. This cosmetic served not only a decorative but also a protective function. It was believed that black eyeliner protected the eyes from bright light and warded off evil spirits. You may also have to learn how to use it for sun protection. All these procedures are not a luxury, but a necessity. Maintaining bodily cleanliness in a hot climate was the best prevention against various problems. And you will have to strictly follow these rules in order to survive. But how do you buy new clothes or a razor in a world where money does not exist? In the next chapter, we will explore the basics of the ancient Egyptian economy and find out how to get the things you need. Your survival directly depends on your ability to obtain the necessary resources: food, clothing, simple tools. But how can you do this in a world where money, as we understand it, is completely absent? You will have to master a complex system of barter and conventional units of value. The main economic unit in ancient Egypt was barter. You give away what you have in excess and get what you need. However, as a new worker, you have nothing of your own to exchange. Your only capital is your labor. You will not receive a salary for your work. Instead, you will be given a ration, a certain amount of grain, bread, beer, and possibly fabric. This ration will be your means of participating in economic life. If you need something beyond what is provided, you can try to exchange some of your grain. For example, you can give a measure of barley for a clay pot or repaired sandals. A conventional unit called a daben was used to estimate the value of goods. A daben is not a coin, but a measure of weight equal to approximately 91 grams of copper. The cost of any goods or services could be expressed in debens. For example, a cow could cost 120 debens, and a simple chair could cost 4 debens. But this does not mean that you paid with copper ingots. You simply selected goods for exchange, the total cost of which was equivalent to the required amount in debens. Markets were the place where all these complex exchange operations took place. Merchants laid out their goods, fish, vegetables, fabrics, ceramics. People walked between the rows, bargaining loudly and trying to get a good deal. For you as a stranger, participating in such trade would be extremely difficult. You don't know the real value of the goods and you don't know how to bargain. It would be very easy to cheat you, exchanging your measure of grain for some trinket. Most of the economy was centralized and controlled by the state and temples. Temples were not only religious centers, but also huge economic complexes. They owned land, workshops, and warehouses where grain and other products were stored. Your life is completely dependent on this centralized distribution system. As long as you work hard, the state, represented by your overseer, will provide you with the minimum necessary for survival. Losing this job means losing your only source of livelihood. You cannot survive in Egypt without understanding how deeply religion permeates all aspects of life here. The gods are not abstract entities, but real forces that intervene in everyday affairs. Ignoring their will is the quickest way to bring trouble upon yourself. The pantheon of Egyptian gods is vast and complex, but you only need to know the main ones. Ra is the sun god who gives life. Osiris is the lord of the underworld. Isis is his faithful wife, a symbol of motherhood and wisdom. Horus is their son, the patron of the Pharaohs. These gods determine the entire world order. Each of your days will begin and end with prayer. Ordinary people turn to the gods with requests for a good harvest, health, and protection from evil forces. You will have to repeat these rituals along with everyone else so as not to stand out. Temples are not just places of worship, but the homes of the gods on earth. Access to the temple was strictly forbidden to mere mortals. Only priests and the pharaoh could enter the sanctuary and communicate with the deity. Priests wielded enormous power and influence in society. They were not only ministers of religion, but also guardians of knowledge, scholars, doctors, and administrators. Their word was law, and it was unthinkable to argue with them. You will see many amulets around people's necks and wrists. The Ankh is a symbol of life. The Eye of Horus is a symbol of protection, and the scarab is a symbol of rebirth. These small objects were of great importance. They were supposed to protect their owner from all misfortunes. The idea of the afterlife occupied a special place in their beliefs. The Egyptians believed that after death, their soul would embark on a long and dangerous journey. The goal of this journey was to reach the fields of Yaru, a paradise where the righteous would find eternal life. All earthly life was seen as preparation for this final exam. That is why such great importance was attached to the construction of tombs and complex rituals. However, for you, a poor worker, all these complexities are inaccessible. Your task is simply to live this life righteously. You must behave in accordance with the principles of Mat. This means being honest, hardworking, respecting your elders, and honoring the gods. Any violation of this order was considered a sin that could block your path to the afterlife. Your survival in this world depends on your ability to accept this worldview. You must show respect for the gods and their servants. Any display of skepticism or disbelief will be taken as a terrible insult. Your biggest and most insurmountable obstacle in ancient Egypt is language. You can neither speak, understand, nor read it. This makes you completely helpless and dependent on others in any unusual situation. The ancient Egyptian language has nothing in common with the modern languages you know. Its sounds, grammar, and logic are completely different. Even if you try very hard, you will only be able to learn a few of the simplest words in a week. This means that you will not be able to ask questions, ask for help, or explain your intentions. Any attempt at communication will be reduced to primitive gestures, but gestures can also be misunderstood, leading to conflict. You will be completely dependent on the orders of your supervisor. You will only understand what is required of you by observing the actions of other workers. You will have to become a shadow, repeating movements and asking no questions. Writing in Egypt is the preserve of the elite. Only a small percentage of the population, mainly scribes and priests, were literate. For you, the hieroglyphs on the walls of temples and tombs are just pretty pictures with no meaning. There were two main types of writing: monumental hieroglyphs, which were carved in stone, and cursive hieratic writing, which was used for everyday records on papyrus. You will not be able to decipher either. This total illiteracy makes you completely dependent on scribes. Any document or record concerning you will be a mystery to you. You will not be able to check whether the amount of grain issued to you or the substance of the charges against you have been recorded correctly. The scribe is one of the most respected and influential figures in society. He is the eyes and ears of the state. His palette of paints and brush are symbols of power based on knowledge. Your inability to communicate makes you extremely vulnerable. You will not be able to stand up for yourself, negotiate better terms, or find out important news. You will live in an information vacuum, perceiving the world only through the actions and reactions of those around you. Your only way out is to learn the words for the most important things as quickly as possible. Water, bread, work, danger. This is the minimum vocabulary that can save your life, and you have catastrophically little time to master it. Last but not least, the final test is a threat to your health. In your world, you would go to a doctor, but here, medicine is a complex mixture of practical knowledge and magical rituals, and you will have to trust the local methods of treatment. If you are injured at work or feel unwell, you will be taken to a local healer. Most often, this role was performed by one of the priests who specialized in healing. He will not have sterile instruments or antibiotics. Egyptian doctors possessed impressive knowledge for their time. They knew how to set dislocations, apply splints to fractures, and treat wounds. They used a large number of herbal remedies as medicines. They might wash a wound with a decoction of willow bark, which contains a natural analgesic. Honey, which has antibacterial properties, could be used for disinfection. They had hundreds of recipes in their arsenal made from herbs, minerals, and other natural ingredients. However, any medical procedure was accompanied by magic spells. The Egyptians believed that all health problems were caused by evil spirits or the wrath of the gods. Therefore, expelling these forces was as important a part of treatment as taking medicine. The healer would recite spells over you to expel the demon of disease. He might give you an amulet for protection or draw magical symbols on your body. You had to accept this as a matter of course, because refusing the ritual would mean refusing all treatment. Simple everyday problems, such as headaches or stomach upsets, were also treated with a combination of herbs and magic. You might be given a tincture of mint or coriander and instructed to recite a specific spell. The effectiveness of such treatment depended not only on the properties of the herbs, but also on your faith. Hygiene was the basis of prevention. The Egyptians understood the connection between cleanliness and health. Therefore, you would be constantly reminded of the need to wash your hands before eating and to maintain bodily cleanliness. In this world, there is no division between science and magic. For the Egyptians, these were two sides of the same coin, equally important for maintaining harmony in the body and in the world. Your survival will depend on whether you can entrust your health to this ancient system. Our week in ancient Egypt has come to an end. As we can see, survival here is not just a physical challenge. It is a complete reboot of consciousness, a rejection of all your familiar concepts of comfort, rights, time, and even the meaning of life. Survival in this world required not so much knowledge from the future as the ability to adapt, be inconspicuous, and be hardworking. It was necessary to become part of this ancient society, to accept its rules and beliefs. Only in this way could one earn the right to live on the banks of the Great Nile. This civilization gave the world incredible achievements, but its foundation was the hard work of millions of nameless people. Their daily struggle for existence was the force that built the pyramids and created a great empire. And for 1 week, you became part of that force. Suggest topics for future videos that you would like to see on our channel in the comments. What other era and civilization should we visit next time? And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new journeys through time.